Hola, piloncillos. Welcome to the Offerings of Copal podcast. Today I am elevating prayers using some Copal de Goma. If you ever smelled it, it smells so sweet and amazing. And I am sending prayers to all in the world that are suffering. May we all come to a place of peace and end the conflicts so that we can come together and take care of the things that truly matter, so that we may be better earth keepers and caretakers, so that we can thrive as a people and not just survive. But with that being said, I apologize for the title of this podcast, Aztec Astrology. It was a bit of clickbait trying to get you to come on to this podcast and sit here with me. Aztec astrology is a bit controversial because, one, Aztecs, pues, they're not really referred to as Aztec, but they're Mexica. And astrology, well, I wouldn't really say astrology, but we do have something just as ancient and profound. Today, we're going to be discussing the Tonalpohualli, which is the sacred calendar of the Mexica. Like I said, sometimes known as the Aztecs, well, more worldly known as the Aztecs. While we may no longer live in the time when this calendar was a central part of daily life, its influence still resonates today. I've been thinking really long and hard about how I was going to conduct this episode and how I could make such a topic accessible and interesting to you. So if you've never heard about the Tonalpohualli, I hope that this is a stimulating introduction, but I promise it's going to be a fun one, full of magic and mystique and full of the wisdom of our ancestors here in the Anahuac. Pues bueno, settle in. I hope you have your tea. You're ready. So, how is the Tonalpohualli still relevant today? Well, the calendar we use now, the 365-day Gregorian calendar to be exact, was shaped by the same foundations as the Tonalpohualli. We wouldn't have the Gregorian calendar had it not been for the Tonalpohualli. In fact, when the invaders came, they made a whole new calendar system based on the Tonalpohualli and gave it its name. Before that, we had the Juliandric calendrical system. So we're seeing a resurgence in its use thanks to the decolonization movement. And if you don't follow my other page on Instagram, Tonali is a place where I've been writing these little daily devotions to the different day signs and sharing the actual date and based on the Tonalpohualli. So, for example, today is Matlakliwan Ome Malinali, which is 12 Malinali, 12 solar herb. And so it's a great day to share medicine, to talk about the things that regenerate in life. It's a little tiny teaser of what the Tonalpohualli can do and how we can, in connecting with the daily energies, how it can help us navigate our day and connect with a different aspect of life. Through this resurgence that we are witnessing, more and more people are turning to ancient indigenous knowledge and technologies to reconnect to the natural rhythms of the universe. Following these counts is becoming more common on social media as people look for ways to integrate this ancestral wisdom into their daily lives. And there really is a bigger and bigger movement to reconnect with our indigenous ancestry. And I feel like that is very deep and, might I say, even controversial topic that maybe we can dive into on another day. I do see your challenges and your comments when it comes to this reconnection journey, and I think it would be helpful to address that at a different time. But for today, we'll explore how the Tonalpohualli can serve as a bridge between us and nature, how we can dissolve the illusion of separation that modern life has created. These energies, or teot, that the calendar is based on, weren't considered gods or deities in the way that we often think of them. So if you encounter Quetzalcoatl, Tlaloc, these, you know the names, or maybe you don't. Maybe that's something else we can talk about another day. But they were actual personifications of nature and natural phenomena, things that we could observe. This understanding doesn't lessen their importance. If anything, it deepens the reverence we can hold for them. We live in a time of growing climate change, political discord, and social division. I mean, we've been in a year of witnessing a genocide happening, multiple genocides, really, but we've been talking about the one. It is clear that modern adaptations of ancestral technologies like the Tonalpohualli are crucial for our survival, and nay, may I say, our thriving as a people. Because I don't think we want to live in a world where we are just surviving. I feel we're very familiar with that already. We want to thrive. And for that to happen, we also have to change our perception of what thriving is. And I guarantee you it isn't owning a yacht or going on a shopping spree. These systems help us reconnect to nature and each other. They remind us that we're not separate from the earth, but deeply intertwined with it. Dialogue that furthers separation is just a distraction from what truly matters. So let's start with the basics. What is the Tonalpohualli? Well, first and foremost, we have two calendars. The first, the Xupohualli, has 365 days, and it describes the days and rituals related to the seasons, and sometimes it's referred to as the agricultural year or the solar calendar. The Tonalpohualli is a 260-day sacred calendar made up of 20 day signs and 13 numbers. Each combination of day sign and number creates a unique energy that influences the day, the character of the people born under it, and the natural cycles around us. Time, in this context, isn't just something that we measure. It is something that is alive and connected to the forces of nature. It is a living being composed of a multitude just like us. In acknowledging this multitude, this being, this aspect of life, the reverence in it being sacred is the reverence of it being alive, and acknowledging that everything that's around us is worthy of being sacred in its existence. The tonali is what a person is born under. It is the energy that enters through the top of your head when you are born. It's not just their soul, but their spiritual essence, shaped by the energy of the day they were born. On the day that you were born, there was an energy signature present, composed of these 20 day signs, the numbers, the teot, the trecena. This energy can guide us, help us recognize our strengths, our challenges, and the purpose we are here to fulfill, if and when we choose to align to our tonali. Although this calendar was described as the count of destinies, you still have a choice. There is always a push and pull between what is destined and preordained and our choices. When we align to our tonali, I feel that doors begin to open when we are in that alignment. When the invaders came, when they were discovering and learning about the Tonalpohualli, even though our ancestors also did prescribe certain meanings and ideas, they still superimpose their belief system, their worldview in their interpretation of the Tonalis and the Tonalpohualli. Therefore, some of these signs, when you look through the codices, and if this really calls to you and you begin your own journey and wanting to learn, you'll encounter such terms like, oh, well, this is a bad sign, this is a good sign. But the reality of it is that I don't really believe that there's such a thing as a good or a bad sign. It's really what you make of it. So whatever tonali you have, whatever destiny you have, you get to choose what you make of it. And you get to make that choice whether it's going to be good for you or not, not in alignment. So that's how I see it. In alignment, not in alignment. What's interesting is that just like astrology in Western traditions, the tonali is determined by your birthday. But instead of looking at the stars, the Mexica people looked to the rhythms of nature and the cycles of time, which of course was reflected in the stars. When you look at the Piedra del Sol, the imprint of the planets is there. You can see the movements of Venus, the movements of Mars and Mercury. The mathematics of our ancestors were based on the stars. So there is an inherent connection here. And in all of it, I just think that the interpretation, we may not say the planet, but I do believe that these tonalis, these energies are based on that. They're based on astronomical phenomena and events that you can see. Now, let's talk about the Tonalamatl. The Tonalamatl is a divinatory tool, a system of understanding who we are and how the universe influences us. Now, if you're the kind of person that doesn't believe in any of these things, that, doesn't see how deeply interconnected we are, not only to each other, but to all things and beings in this universe and existence, and see that we are all connected in essence by being made of the same thing, which is stardust, then you may struggle with this episode, and maybe this isn't for you, or maybe if you give it a shot, this may open your mind. Now, the Tonalamatl is a study of our destiny and personality based on the wisdom of ancient Mexico. The word Tonalama refers to this study drawn from the word Tonalamatl, which was written on a mate paper in ancient times. So there's the tonal, the energy of the tonal written on amate paper. So you have Tonalamatl, and that sort of composes the word. Tonalamatl allows us to know the potential that we carry, the characteristics we were born with, and the influences that guide us. When we breathe our first breath, that energy of that moment is imprinted on our spirit. And the Tonalamatl reveals that. It reveals that energetic signature that was present in the cosmos at the precise time that you were born. Now, this system doesn't just tell us who we are, it teaches us how to use our potential, how to elevate our condition as human beings. I like to think about the presence of the beings and energies within the Tonalamatl as lessons or conduits in which we are learning through. And when we're in alignment, things flow. And when we're in disalignment, we are challenged. And no matter whichever tonali it is, our ancestors believed in the principle of duality. So you're going to face the duality of the energy potential that you have, but that is part of falling into alignment with your tonali. When we do, we can learn how to harmonize with the natural cycles of nature. The Tonalamatl allows us to see the hidden strengths we carry and the alternatives for living a more fulfilling life. So how is the Tonalpohualli structured? And how is it all connected to nature? Every day in the calendar is governed by the forces of nature, whether it's a specific animal, element, or cosmic force. Here's a bit of a breakdown. So one, we have the hour. The day was divided into 20 parts, each lasting 72 minutes. Each part had its own influence shaped by one of the 20 signs. And now the 72 minutes are kind of spread out but we don't need to go into the technical. So then we have the day. Each day in the calendar was a combination of one of 13 numbers and one of 20 signs. These day signs included natural elements like wind, water. We have a hikat, app. We have animals like ocelot, which is an ocelot, but it is commonly translated as a jaguar, or eagle, cuautli, and abstract concepts like death and movement, mikisli and nolin. And our numbers as well, we had our own set of numerology and meanings prescribed to these numbers, which will again have to be a topic for another day. Then we also have the Lord of Day. Each day was also ruled by one of the 13 Lords of Day, which shaped the energy and personality of the day. These lords were tied to natural phenomena and helped guide both physical and spiritual aspects. Each of the day signs as well also has a regent, which rules that day sign. We have Lord of Day, and then we also have a Lord of Night, and there's 9 Lords of Night. Then we have the trecena. The trecena is a group of 13 days. There are 20 trecenas in the Tonalpohualli, and each one has a unique influence. This is where we can see how time was seen as a sacred rhythm. The trecena, though it's a little bit further out, I feel is one of the more important aspects of the Tonalamatl. It could really provide you with a roadmap for your life, as the trecena is composed of 13 4-year cycles, which can help you navigate through those periods of your life. Those 13 4-year cycles equal to 52, which when you reach 52, according to our ancestors, you would be welcomed into elderhood. And so you navigating through those 13 4-year cycles is a sacred set of lessons. So right now, you are moving through a specific 4-year cycle that is assigned to your trecena, that is trying to teach you something of bigger life lessons in your life. And so the trecena is one of my favorite aspects of the Tonalamatl. Next, we have the month and year. The Tonalpohualli intersects with the Xupohualli, which is the 365-day solar calendar that we talked about earlier. Together, they form what's known as the magical count, or also the count of destinies. This connection between the cosmic cycles of human life is a reminder that everything in the universe is interconnected. And it's interesting when you look at diagrams, the Xupohualli and the Tonalpohualli, they sort of click into place, these two circles that are in this constant perpetual motion, like little cogs in a clock. The Mexica didn't see themselves as separate from nature. The illusion of separation that modern society has created is fading away as more of us reconnect with these ancient systems. We are a part of that same cycle. The Tonalpohualli reminds us of that. As we face challenges like climate change and social upheaval, it is crucial that we use these tools to reconnect with the earth and each other. There is prophecy, Cuauhtémoc's consigna speaks about how at the time of the invasion that we would have to put away all of our altars, that we would have to put away all the things that mattered to us, and that one day the time would come where we would be able to take those things out again, that we would have to take those out again so that we could elevate that consciousness and create that world that we all want to see. And I do believe that that time is now. I don't believe that we have to suffer and go through years and trials of tribulations to learn what has already been kept from us for the last 500 years. As people, this is not just an ancestral inheritance for us, people of the Anahuac. This is a treasure of humanity. I think that one of the more beautiful aspects of the Tonalpohualli is that its wisdom isn't bound by anything, by borders, ethnicities, or any man-made construct. Whether you're connecting with your own indigenous roots or simply seeking a way to harmonize your life with the cycles of the earth, this knowledge is for everyone. The energies of nature don't discriminate. They are here for all of us, and tapping into them can help guide anyone on their path. I think it's really important to, when we're having this conversation, to, of course, give homage and give respect to the people whom have created this beautiful tool, and to also elevate the voices of the people that are still passing on this wisdom through the oral tradition or through other methods. We can't have this conversation without pointing out that there are still people that are connected with this count, that are still keeping the count, the Tonalpohualli, the Ayuk, which is a tribe in Oaxaca that is still keeping the count today, still keeping that count alive. It is also important to note that there are different counts of the Tonalpohualli, and there's actually a lot of discourse and controversy and lots of arguments, mostly on online forums, about which count is the most accurate, what the foundations of these counts are. And again, that is a topic for another day, but I do think it's important to note. I think one of the most important takeaways, that at least something that's brought peace to my heart in the study of this, because as I've been studying this for the time that I have, I've encountered these different arguments, and it's been really hard to sometimes even dive into the wisdom because of some of the discourse around these things. And I really do feel that it takes away from this powerful tool and the possibility for connection. At this point in time, what's brought me peace is to consider the different counts as just a different facet. I know my tonali in all the counts, actually, and I connect with them and I resonate with them and I use them and see how they can be interconnected, because the reality of it is that time isn't linear. So how are you going to really say, where time begins? Circle has no beginning or end, and these energies are universal, and at any point in time we can tap into them, and we have to tap into them because that count of days is every day. Every day we have an opportunity to connect with, Sipakli, the crocodile. Even if it's not within our Tonalamatl, we still have to learn, and we still have to connect through that energy. And so I do think that there are infinite possibilities here. But I personally have resonated the most with the Tonalamatl I received by sitting with an elder, who keeps a different count, keeps the count that I have, which has been a controversial count for some. But sitting with the elder and receiving my Tonalamatl, having it read, really shifted a lot of things into place for me. And there have been some differences and some things I've discovered on the road, within this Tonalamatl. But all of this has been part of my journey. Back in the day, some of our ancestors would not share the contents of the Tonalamatl, because they deeply believed that if someone knew your calendrical name, which is your first name is your calendrical name. So in my case, my name is Chicomecoa, and so that means 7 serpent. And by revealing your name, you could reveal your tresena and different aspects of your destiny. And some of our ancestors didn't want to give those names out to the enemy, or, for whatever reason. But I think we're beyond those times, and we shouldn't be afraid, So yes, my name is Chikome Koa. So I was born on 7 serpent. And for me, that has been a really sort of life-changing event in learning about my Tonalamatl. In the other count, my name is Nawiki Yawit, which is 4 rain. when I first began this journey and I was learning on my own, and I hadn't gone out on all the trips I've taken to Mexico. Before I began all of that, I was trying to learn this on my own. And I have always been deeply connected with astrology, esotericism, anything like that. For those that know or don't know, I've been reading tarot, been into my mediumship for the last 20 years. It's crazy to say that, but it's been 20 years of channeling and being a conduit and learning about all those things. And of course, my gateway into these things was through the Western lens. And that's okay. I've made peace with that, but this is where I am now. And I've been on this red road for about 8 years now. And when I began this journey, it was very, very magical, very impactful. I definitely thought I was going crazy at some point in time, but I was diving deep into the calendar, and I just, I remember just it being part of my prayers that I wanted to connect with the astrology, okay, in quotations, astrology of my ancestors. And I was like, I love astrology so much. I want to learn about the astrology of my ancestors. And at the time, I didn't really understand the concept. I didn't really know about the Tonalpohualli. And lo and behold, this path has brought me here, literally brought me to my prayers. And I've taken courses, I've learned with elders, I've climbed the mountains, but most significantly of all, I've sat every day, to really sit and connect with these energies of the Tonalpohualli to learn. I've learned from the crocodile by being in the presence of the crocodile, the Sipakli. I've had the honor and the privilege to really be with the crocodiles. And for those that follow me on Instagram, then I've taken a lot of trips to Puerto Escondido, where the crocodiles live. They live in harmony with the land there and the people. So I have like firsthand experience with the Sitpacli. I have firsthand experience with the Coscacuautli, with the vulture. Not only here living in California as I see them fly, witness them, but in all the different parts of Mexico, I've been able to connect with them, some closer encounters than others. And it's been really beautiful. With the serpent, I can, we can really observe and learn about the Tonalpohualli through our experience. You have personal experience with Ehecat, the wind. As we take a deep breath, you have personal experience with that, the water, with death, Mikisli. You have a personal experience with all of these energies. And when you really start to learn and sit with them, these things really reveal themselves. So I really do think this is something that is for all of us, But really diving into this journey and learning about my Tonalamatl, learning of my connection with the serpent. They say that those with that Goat energy are grounded. They can feel the vibrations, or are sensitive with the vibrations in the air, what is said, can have that smoothness of talk, which is something that I'm still working on, but I do feel that when I'm channeling something, I'm really just speaking from this place. And they say Goat people are good for business, and there's a number of different things. And as connecting with my Tonali is my life path. It's not, I don't have all the answers for my connections with Goat, but without revealing too much of my personal life, I really do feel very connected with it. And for example, one of the aspects of Goat that I deeply connect with is the shedding aspect, the constant, the place of being in constant transformation, of shedding skins. And for those that have known me a long time, and this is something that is truly evident, I've really gone through a complete transformation, especially as I arrived on the red road. That really almost sealed the deal of my transformation, but I've shed multiple times in this lifetime, and I'm sure there are more sheddings to come. And so for me, connecting with my Tonalamatl has been life-changing, learning about my Tresena. And this is where I see the two counts and I see their connections. My Tresena was born on Tresena of Kiyawit, which is the rain, and the rain is also part of my other count. And so when I had first started my count, I started to make art about Tlaloc because my name in that count is now Wikiyawit. So I would make art about Tlaloc and the rain, exploring the possibility in this identity. And for me, it was just something that's continued to evolve as with the count that I relate to the most now, which is that Chikomekwa. I still relate to that aspect of the rain, but now I see things in a different perspective. And after all these things that I've learned, I've also learned about the dissolution of identity, which is a really difficult concept for all of us to walk in. We like to put on our identities, and even this, even as you embark on this journey, if you choose that you want to explore this, just be mindful that this doesn't define you. Just like there's nothing out here that defines you and makes you who you are, but they're aspects of you, they're facets of you, they're tools for you to use to navigate this world. But that dissolution of identity is incredibly important because identity forms an anchor on this plane. And it's a difficult thing for people to relinquish, but once you start to peel back the layers of identity and get back to the core of who you are, the essence of who you are, and get into the alignment of who you are, which is part of what we're talking about, this tonali energy. Really, at the bottom of all of that is that you are connected with the rest of the universe, that there is no separation. So I really do think that is a very beautiful takeaway, and something that I've been exploring. Learning about my Tonalamatl has helped me be more creative. When I'm in doubt or stuck, I can always turn back to my Tonalamatl and see the parts where I have yet to explore or find avenues to move forward. And so I highly encourage you to explore this. If you are in the tradition, getting a Tonalamatl is something that is essential. I remember when I first started my journey, it was already like a year in. I used to be part of another kalpuli when I lived in another city. Then I moved, joined a different kalpuli. I'm withholding kalpuli details on purpose. But my second kalpuli, I was like, oh yes, it was now, I had reached the point where I could now wear an atuendo, and I wanted to have my atuendo reflect something of significance. And they're like, well, typically you go and you get a Tonalamatl. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I do to get a Tonalamatl? Oh, well, we have to go send it to go get made. And though it's supposed to be a part and it's supposed to be accessible, it really wasn't. And it was something that I didn't feel I was going to get there. And even in the 6 years that I was there, it was never offered, not to me, not to anyone. But a lot of the times it's like you have to go and send it to get made. There needs to be someone that knows how to do it. And now, having been on this side of the journey, I know why. It is learning how to read a Tonalamatl is wrapped in so much mystique and difficulty. It's quite a journey, and it's not something that is like commonly taught, or even this. Like, if this is your first time hearing about what a Tonalpohualli is, what a Tonalamatl is, it's not something that is even widely spread or even known about. So I'm hoping that this podcast and this has been interesting and that it's contributing to getting this more widely known. But yeah, it was difficult to even learn about this, and everything, it seems like everything within within this path has been difficult to uncover. And a lot of times I get asked, what are some resources? What are a book I can read? And it saddens me, that some of these resources are difficult to come by. It's of my personal mission to create a library. I've been slowly collecting books for the last several years, and I have many books. Most of them are in my storage, unfortunately, but even where I'm living right now, I've been collecting books. I'm driving everybody crazy with all my books, but I hope to have a little library of resources available sometime in the future. I don't know how or when I'm going to do this, but it is my goal to have this collection. And one of the things that I do is that when I find a good book, there's always a bibliography at the end, and I look at those books, and there's sort of a chain. That's sort of how I've been creating a chain, and of course, listening to others and their book recommendations. But all of that to say is that finding this knowledge and information has been difficult, but I encourage you to do your research, to dive in, even if it's hard, don't give up. And of course, always read everything with a grain of salt, because a lot of it is written from a Western lens, and the understanding of the cosmovision really isn't quite there. So I think definitely studying through myths, studying through the arts, looking at the places themselves, and allowing yourself to really connect with the images and let the wisdom of your soul really come through and speak to you before reading any of the text, I think is an important way to look at this work, because so much of its original significance is viewed through a worldview that was fundamentally different than our ancestors. But the evidence of our cosmology, our cosmovision is still relevant today. It's still being practiced today by the numerous tribes all over the Anahuac. So don't give up hope on this journey. So I ended up getting my Tonalamatl way after, having to create my atuendo. And so I ended up making my atuendo reflect my journey to danza. So I don't know, maybe online, if you follow me on Instagram, which is where I do the majority of my posting, you'll see that my atuendo on the back is Mayan art, because it was the Maya that got me on the path. Long story short, I ended up having a series of dreams after having promised the ancestors that I would create an art offering for them in the winter of 2016. And I didn't. It came winter and I hadn't done it yet. So they started bombarding me with dreams. And I started having dreams about rotten ofrendas, having dreams about the temples, the pyramids, and with rotten ofrendas in front of them. And this is before I had visited any of the sites, but specifically it was Teotihuacan. And maybe it was somewhere deeply buried in my subconscious, but it was not something that I was consciously aware of, but it was Teotihuacan. Now I know it was Teotihuacan. And interestingly, there had been a fence, and I'd never been there. I'd never seen it, maybe in a picture, but even the picture doesn't show that there's a fence around it anyway. But there were ofrendas all around it, and there was like a long road, and there was like a bus. And I also had this dream about these Mayan twins, Hunahpu, Nishpalank. I didn't know that was their names, but I remember getting out of my dream and just seeing their image, and I was just like, who, what? And I typed in Maya twins in Google, and it took me down this crazy rabbit hole. Turns out there are Mayan twins, the Ixpalanc and Hunahpu, which are part of the Mayan creation myth and the Popol Vuh. And so I read the Popol Vuh, and it just took me down this crazy journey, and I ended up in danza. And I had made a whole bunch of art pieces, which I still have, and I did published recently, but it's one of those things where I held on to them for so long that they're so deeply significant to me that I think a lot of the meaning is lost. But they're pretty crazy jewelry pieces, which I know you don't think of as art pieces, but these are pretty elaborate. You can see them. They're on my website. But I had made them an offering piece as well. And eventually, through jewelry vending, I know this sounds so crazy. Through jewelry vending, I met a woman who had some of the same symbols on her table that I had been diving into. And she's like, oh, well, you should. I remember talking to her and telling her all this stuff, and she thought I was crazy, and it was fine, but also not. She said all the kind words that I needed to hear. So thank you, Lily. And she just invited me to danza and said that I needed to go, and that, that my blood was calling me, all these beautiful things. And I went the next day, and I never accept invitations since I'm actually pretty introverted. And which introversion is an aspect of Coat people, by the way. We like to live in a little cave. It's very accurate, at least for me. And so I went to this danza, and I loved my first calpuli. It was such a beautiful calpuli. They're still there. And it was such a welcoming, loving place. And I began my journey with them. So by the time I moved to my second calpuli and it was time to make my atuendo, I wanted to honor the Maya ancestors that came to me and started me on this journey. And so that's why on the back of my atuendo, I have a version of Kukulkan and some Maya iconography. And in the front of my atuendo is Quetzalcoatl. And so it's Kukulkan in the back and Quetzalcoatl in the front. And it's one of those things that has the story that you need to understand before really understanding it. I had a maestro be like, you have Maya on the back and Aztec in the front. Like, you, like, what did you do? And I'm like, well, it's personal. It's personal. And, when you're on this path, I think that what your spirit says and what your heart says, what your intention says is really important and the most important, because I think there's a lot of encounters, people in their own like belief systems that will try and change the way that you think or view things. And I always think an open perspective is best, but I have yet to create an atuendo that reflects my Tonalamatl. So that is definitely what is next on the agenda. And, that is something that I'm still exploring. The Tonalamatl, all things considered, even though I received it around 3-4 years ago, it has been this journey to get to where I am now, really just understanding it on a deeper level and continuing this journey, because it is a life journey to understand it. And it's time to make more art about it. And I'm just really excited about this next phase for me. And I hope that this interests you, this has been interesting to you, and that you explore Tonalamatl if you haven't already. And that I hope that it opens doors for you, and I hope that it inspires you to create beautiful things, to follow your heart's desire, to raise the vibrations, and overall, to stay connected. Before we go, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What is one area in your life where you feel out of sync with nature or the universe? Share in the comments or reflect on it privately. Or if you want to share what your tonali is, if how do you feel about the Tonalamatl? And any feedback about this episode is also welcome. I want to create things that are stimulating for you, and also talk about things that maybe aren't talked about as much, that maybe should be talked about. Also, don't forget to check out my book, Tlatoli Oracle, Divinations for Night and Day, which is an oracle book. So if you've had like tarot cards or oracle cards, this is an oracle, but in a book form. So you pretty much flip through the pages. Whatever page it lands on is your message. And now this book has come as a consequence, as a result of all my exploration, my Tonalamatl, everything is culminated into this book. My study of the Tonalpohualli. In fact, this Tlatoli oracle was written through my daily devotions to the Tonalpohualli. So they're sort of channeled messages from the different Tonali and Teot of the Tonalpohualli. And I wrote it as an oracle. So it's kind of poetic. It's both in English and in Spanish. And there's some Nahuatl thrown within. And so you can pick up a copy on my website, which is www.siwamasat.com. You will find it linked below. You can also book a Tonalamatl reading with me. If you're ready to dive into this ancient wisdom, I'd love to work with you. This has been such an incredibly fulfilling experience for me to really sit and study your Tonalamatl and explain it to you. I share it from a perspective of, here's your Tonalamatl, but here's how you can use it in your modern day. I give you modern day applications to your Tonalamatl, which I think is a really important thing that we do, because what good is all this information if we don't know how to apply it into our daily lives? So this is something that I highly stress and point out, as well as, walk you through. So I'd love to work with you. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to comment, share, and let others know about this journey we're on together. Until next time, piloncillos, keep learning, keep growing, and stay connected.